Runic is looking to shake up what looks like one of the more competitive events out here. Don't be the 30% of you that have not smashed the ever-living crap out of that subscribe button. Smash it so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. I love when we get the chance to see different flows in the metagame here because it shows that people are testing different ideas out here. Now, for this event, we had double Runic taking up the highest representation in the event. Now, I'm actually a little bit surprised about that because I haven't seen hardly any Runic anywhere in really any of these events. And the fact that you kind of do a double take here and you're like, wait, where in the world did, this come from? So to see that we are, seeing this deck actually in some high representation is kind of interesting. We also had two Tearlaments out here as well. The Frankenstein deck of the format actually is still doing a very good job out here. I still will say this, the deck is very much held together by Chaos Ruler and Fairy Tale Snow, but that doesn't mean that the deck can't actually do something. We also had Mathmech out here. I've loved seeing how Mathmech has genuinely evolved with the new cards. The whole Firewall Guardian stuff has added a pretty strong dynamic to the deck, which has kind of allowed it to still keep up. A fresh coat of paint on the already, consistent circular has done a lot of work. We also had Super Heavy Samurai. Super Heavy Samurai, man, let me tell you, the amount of stuff that you can just build into the deck and then laugh at your opponent because you're able to play it is really unfair. We also had Tri-Brigade Sprite showing up as well. I'm not really surprised to see that deck is doing its thing. And then we also had a Purely player out here as well. But overall, I mean, looking at this top cut, this is one of the most competitive events that I think that I have had the chance to actually see up to date just yet. And that is kind of interesting when you can see, a metagame come together like this. Winning your event here was Super Heavy Samurai. You can thank the Universal Pendulum Scales for allowing this deck to still be able to do its thing. Now, the OCG has a little bit of an extra layer of sauce with this deck. They actually get the interaction point to make Dagda with Scythe. Now, if the TCG actually had to deal with that, I would say that that's pretty unfair. If anything, I think the TCG has definitely liked the Stein aspect of things a little bit more. That way you can try to cheese out an exterior for while you can. Honestly, the rest of the deck is just, it's a lot of extenders, but a lot of people don't know how to play against this deck. Having the right amount of monsters to be able to combo in the, 40 card monster pile definitely has been very, very strong. So overall, deck is going to continue to be a very big monster. I think a lot of people are going to be very, very surprised if they play against this and they're like, what in the world is actually physically happening here? Yeah, you're just getting comboed for days. Next up is our first Runic list. The thing that makes me happy about seeing this deck is, the new level 9 Synchro added some interesting dynamic to this deck. Any of the spell cards can actually call out the level 9, and then you can just look at your opponent and go, wait, what? And yes, we are playing what appears to be, is that the Tyrant's Wrath in here as well? That's a little cute, interesting tech choice. The fact that you can see different ideas come together here with Runic and actually be viable is incredibly good. And you've also are seeing how the deck has to evolve at this point to keep up with the ever-changing metagame. Because you are seeing that rapid change, with Duelist Nexus, you do have to factor in something like the Ghost Reaper down there, so you just don't auto-lose the game. Actually, seeing what you are cutting down there to mess up the opponent is actually very interesting for tech choices. Next up here, we have our next Runic list. And now this one actually is playing the same Tyrant card in here as well. We are playing the incredibly big level 9 monster in here as well. You gotta love to see that. Now this build also chose to go with the Inspector border route of things, having a monster that you can essentially drop down and floodgate your opponent. It is kind of the same thing as the very big angry friend. Thank you, big giant mountain of Mono Iwado. But Inspector border, yeah, it does get turned off or give your opponent one effect when you do have to Runic spell it, but as long as your opponent generically can't play the game anyway, you're probably going to be in a semi-decent position. So that's kind of something to really consider there as well. But the current evolution of Runic being able to showcase that power, I think is definitely something to note. Outside of that, for the way that the list is looks pretty straightforward, honestly. Next up here we have Mathmech with the Spirit package. Now we've actually kind of have seen the development for this deck kind of come back out of the woodwork here, is because, I mean, you get locked into Cybers. So what happens if I can, you know, play my Spirit package in the deck and then not get punished for capitalizing on those monsters? Well, that's what you're actually seeing here. Like Exosister, this deck is getting the chance to take advantage of Sakitama and be able to get those additional extension summons, because what your opponent's supposed to do? I mean, you're free to play the game, you're free to set up those monsters, and then your opponent actually can't do anything about that. And that's what makes this particular build all the more scarier, is once you start to see those combo lines come together. Also, shout out to the Solemn Scolding down there. Haven't seen Solemn Scolding see play in quite some time. So to see a deck like this be able to bust open those good old cool cards and be able to play them, that's always awesome. Next up here is Tearlaments. Oh my gosh, the Revolution Synchrons. They chose not to play Mud Dragon. They chose to play the other fusion substituter in here as well. Now I remember back in the day, I was hyped to see that, you know, you could play multiple fusion subbers in here. Actually playing this one means that you don't have to play the polymerization. Is that the only reason why they chose not to play it? Was that way they're like, I don't have to play that dead polymerization? Because with, you know, the Mud, you do have the ability to discard search for the poly, but this build just chose not to do that. I wonder if they felt that there were just better options for them, which, I mean, to be fair, there probably are in certain choices. They're also playing a mini Shadal package down here in the side deck as well. Yeah, this build has very interesting tech choices going about it, but once again, I mean, you see how everything is being held together in here by the particular card choices. All right, next up, oh boy, we have another Tearlaments list. Oh boy. This build is playing Tuning. I mean, if you could technically mill the tier monster on the Tuning, it technically does give you a free extension. That's kind of cute. I wonder what the odds are of being able to do that. I assume that there was probably one part of the day that they were like, all right, we're going to activate the Tuning, go ahead and get our search here, and then they mill the tier. They're like, yes, I get free value. Let's go ahead and set up that fusion monster so the opponent can't play the game. Looking at the rest of how this deck is being held together, though, Chaos Ruler, yet again, I do see that we have been seeing new play with the Visus Synchro in here as well. The Visus Synchro actually adds a lot of flavor into the deck, and then I see that we have our same standard defensive options in here that we've had for quite some time. So yeah, list looks actually pretty straightforward here. And then of course we have our Sprite Brigade deck back here. Sprite Brigade doesn't really lose much, though I will say that this build is playing the Shadal Fusion package in it. That's not something that I really would have considered in here. So you can go like post side decking, board in just the Shadal Fusions to laugh at your opponent. We even really play it. Oh, you're making a Noitalis in here. Okay, well, you know what? When push comes to shove, if you can get a level of consistency in a deck like this going to punish the opponent, you're probably going to be in an incredibly good game-winning position. And it does show, like, of all of the ideas that you've got kind of coming together here, which ideas are actually working out in the long run. And that's what you really want to see. Your success turnover rate, what is having the best successful results for you as the player, and overall, just what can get you a big W out here. And our last list here is our Purely list out of this event. I will say, for what you're seeing here in terms of Purely, it looks very, very standard. The deck, I mean, what's our discard fodder? We're not even relying on it. It's just max C draw power. They didn't even put any Dark World in here. There's no Volcanic Shells. This is just back to good old-fashioned, old reliable here, the way it seems. So they don't even want to deal with, you know, the additional stuff that we've kind of seen a lot of the other decks deal with, which I think is kind of interesting in itself. So, metagame developments, everybody. What do you guys think? Please leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later on in the day for some more cool ass content. Peace out, guys. Patrons, Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.